How's it, lead listeners? Have you clocked out for the year already? Perhaps on the beach? Switched off? Well, constitutional law expert Pierre de Vos has. He's given us his last interview for the year, touching on all his highs and lows for the judiciary in 2025. From one judge allegedly receiving church bribes to IDAC's Transnet corruption trial.
There's actually 16 judgments of the Constitutional Court outstanding for more than 6 months. 6 more than a year. This is quite disturbing. The Constitutional Court used to hand down judgments almost always within 6 months. And over the years, it has become a bigger and bigger problem. It sounds like the judges are not doing their homework, or some of them at least.
Later in our training topic, our politicians haven't gone on holiday yet. Over in KwaZulu-Natal, a chaotic legislature sitting in motion against Premier Thamsanqa Ntuli sees him survive. And finally, the British suffered serious losses in the Second Anglo-Boer War, with On This Day in South African History that's heard at the end of the show.
To know when the next episode drops, hit the like, follow and subscribe buttons on our YouTube, Spotify and Apple Podcast channels.
Lots to come over the next half hour. My name's Graeme Robenheimer. This is The Lead, and this is the South African story. Professor Pierre de Vos is a member of UCT's law faculty, and he joins us live on the line now with his debut edition of The Lead. Hoe gaan het, Pierre?
And it's kind of like a donkey, can't complain.
Fantastic. I understand that you're going on leave soon, and this is your last edition of the year, or last interview with the media, so I really do appreciate your time, and you must please pack me in your suitcase when you get underway. Look, let's begin with this in terms of your latest op-ed for News 24. You talk about this very interesting case from earlier in the year of Eastern Cape Judge President Rauby and Mbenenge. Of course, he was questioned in this inquiry over allegations that he sexually harassed a former court secretary, Andiswa Mengo, and the now 41-year-old's complaint led to this tribunal being brought by the Judicial Service Commission, and Mbenenge faces possible impeachment once that judgment comes around. But you're not so certain that that's going to be the case.
Well, we don't know, of course. The reason why I said there's a possibility that the Judicial Conduct Tribunal might not find the judge president guilty is based on the kind of questions, the attitudes, the comments made by the person presiding over the proceedings, the retired judge from the High Court, who seemed to share some of the, what I call sexist, patriarchal, sometimes quite shockingly archaic attitudes about sexual harassment of the judge president, of whom against whom there's a complaint about. So it looked like he wasn't actually that convinced that it is a problem that someone in a position of power keep on harassing and sending messages, many of them clearly not wanted, to somebody who's much more junior in the same system, also in the court, but not a judge, just an administrator or an administrator.
What really struck me at the time when I was interviewing Karen Morn and we were following proceedings a lot closely, Pierre, was this sense of, we're getting a glimmer behind the curtain of what the patriarchy within the judicial system might look like, right?
Yes, so that's why I wrote in my piece that wasn't that surprised by the sexism, both from the judge president, but also from the bench. But what I was surprised about is that they say these things in public, that they're not hiding the fact that the whole defense of the judge president was a sexist defense. It was basically, there's nothing wrong with somebody in a position of power, continuously harassing a woman merely because she didn't every single time said, no, I don't want this, go away, stuff off. This is, as I quote the leader of Rise Mzansi, Songezo Zibi, saying, it's like a textbook case of how the patriarchy works. Yeah, and so for me, that was a bit surprising.
Yeah, and I remember at the time there was also these complaints that he would remark often on what women within the office were wearing at the time. And I mean, in a modern day workplace, these are obviously big no-nos, and we thought we were done away with these sort of things a long time ago. Then there's this other high-profile case that took over the headlines this year. Pierre, of course, of Gauteng High Court Judge Portia Pahlane being arrested on corruption charges. This has all got to do with the International Pentecost Holiness Church. There's the succession battle that's been dragging on within that particular church for a really long time. Now the accusation is that this particular judge was receiving kickbacks and at least $2 million towards the purchase of a lavish home in Hartbeespoort. I mean, I was out once upon a time at the IPHC church in Zeerbekom. I've been inside the church before. It looks very palatial. I would never have seen something like this coming.
Yes, I must say it is quite shocking. Of course, we don't know what will happen, what will be revealed in the prosecution itself. What struck me, though, when I read the news, I was quite struck by the fact that it didn't make me worry that this was an abuse of power by the National Prosecuting Authority, which 5 years ago, 10 years ago would definitely have been the case, because, of course, this is a textbook kind of tactic that people in power, that the executive would use to intimidate and silence specific judges by targeting them for prosecution. Now, I don't think anybody really thought that. People were just shocked and say, oh my goodness, this might actually have happened. They must have evidence. And now we will have to wait and see where that goes. But of course, the difficulty is that it's now going to make it perhaps easier for people who want to discredit the judiciary to point to this case, if it turns out to be true, and say, well, that means the whole judiciary is corrupt, that it rules based on the brown envelopes and so on and so on. So it is obviously not a good thing for the judiciary that it happened.
Yeah, now out of these two cases, which of these in a constitutional law expert's mind, like Pierre de Vos, would you argue is our lowest point then for the year of 2025? Which one takes the cake?
It's a tough call. It depends maybe what happens in the judge president's case, and if he is going to be found guilty of sexual harassment or not. If not, I think it's really bad for the judiciary, because it sends a signal to all women, to all female litigants, female legal representatives, that it's fine for there to be some people on the bench who clearly do not understand gender equality, who are basically patriarchs. The Judge Benenge thing might be, it might, depending what comes out, it might turn quite catastrophic, because there's also questions about the deputy judge president who had allocated this case to the judge, allegedly after the first bribe was paid to her. So that raises, of course, questions about how did that happen. It can become a big scandal. I have no idea. I don't have any information about this. But on the other hand, I think it's quite there's some kind of consolation in that the judge was arrested. If she is corrupt, she was actually caught, and hopefully, if the facts are there, if the evidence is there, she will be prosecuted and she will be sent to jail. So at least in that sense, it can suggest that the system is going to hopefully catch people who do this kind of thing in the judiciary.
Right. And then in your latest op-ed that we've been alluding to, Pierre de Vos, despite arrests and sexism, South African judiciary shows marginal progress. We also point to the Constitutional Court and the efficacy of that particular establishment this year. Apparently numerous outstanding judgments. I wasn't aware of this, up to at least 10. Is that right, Pierre?
The judicial standard says that if a judgment is outstanding for more than 6 months, then it is a problem. Then it should be delivered within 3 months, but after 6 months, it becomes an outstanding judgment. There's actually 16 judgments of the Constitutional Court outstanding for more than 6 months, more than a year. This is quite disturbing. The Constitutional Court used to hand down judgments almost always within 6 months. And over the years, it has become a bigger and bigger problem. And now having 6 judgments outstanding for longer than a year is quite troubling. You know, it's sounds like the judges are not doing their homework, or some of them at least. And clearly, it requires strong leadership from the Chief Justice Meyer, to make sure that the colleagues are on board, that they do their work, that they do it timelessly. It's a hard work, it's a lot of work, but they need to find a way to make sure that they do the work in time.
Pierre, perhaps you would have seen this, and I just want your general opinion. We don't have to go too much into the detail, because I know it's quite ingewikkeld when we talk about the Madlanga Commission. Of course, many of us have been closely watching to hear how, if at all, evidence would be brought regarding the judiciary, and the Concourt Chief Justice Meyer had indicated, once the Madlanga Commission's terms of reference had been drawn up, that if anybody had any allegations or any information that were critical to unearthing alleged corruption within the judiciary, that come to the fore. And of course, we saw it with this KT Molefe. He's the alleged ringleader of this death squad in Gauteng, so intrinsically linked to all these high-profile cases that we've been hearing about. And it's alleged that he paid up to 2.5 million rand to secure his bail in one of the cases. And we actually have acting Gauteng Judge President Aubrey Ledwaba with his sort of back against the wall. He's publicly denied all of these bribery claims and wants to come to the commission to clear his name. I mean, something that also needs to be cleared up, hey?
So I think this is the difference maybe between the allegations against judges before the Madlanga Commission and the arrest and now prosecution of Justin Benenge, and that is that we haven't seen any evidence of this. There's allegations, of course. Yeah. It's serious allegations, but it's important that it be investigated. But we also know that the first thing that happens for any person who is in a bit of legal bother, they're going to say the judges are against them, there's corruption, there's this and that. So I'm a little bit more hesitant to take that seriously in the absence of at least some evidence to that effect. I know that there was also an allegation that there was that the judge or the magistrate who imposed strict bail conditions on I've forgotten now his rank. Is it Khumalo, the person from crime intelligence, that he was also bought because the restrictions on the bail conditions were too strict. That is just conjecture. So one must be careful to distinguish between allegations that are probably just nonsense and allegations that might have something to it, and of course need to be pursued vigorously.
Right, and of course, everything that's been coming out, the Madlanga Commission, purely because it is a commission of inquiry, must be taken with a huge pinch of salt, because as you so rightfully say, it really comes down to the affidavits, the actual case dockets, the investigations being led, which actually takes me to this next point. I was surprised to see that the Transnet corruption case that IDAC has been leading at the NPA, didn't get a mention in your piece as a possible successful endeavor led by prosecutorial forces this year. Pierre, would you not agree that that's at least a bit of a win towards something of, that question of accountability that continuously gets evaded within the public sphere in South Africa these days?
Yeah, so I guess the bar is very low for the prosecuting authority, because especially in the high-profile cases, they really seem to have stuffed things up often, and they have not been very good. The argument is that IDAC, which is now the legislation was now passed to make it formally a kind of separate unit within the prosecuting authority. The argument is that they might be the ones who's going to help to nail some of the big corrupt crooks. And this is maybe a green shoot, if that is the right English to use, in this process. But there's so many other cases. And in a way, it sounds maybe defeatist, but it's impossible, I think, for the prosecuting authority to pursue all these corruption cases because there are too many. And as we know from the interviews last week with the prosecuting authority, Hermian Cronje made it clear that there's clearly problems with the quality of people in the prosecuting authority. But more importantly, the prosecuting authority can only prosecute if the case has been investigated and the evidence found, and the Hawks and the police need to do this, and they are incapable of doing this mostly. So the IDAC, they can also do investigations. And that is, I think, if there's hope for the prosecuting authority in the short term, that is probably it.
Yeah. Looking at this interview process before we end off, Pierre, we know that Shami Libatoi's current term ends in January coming up, and we've seen these various interviews. Of course, it doesn't take very long for the Zuma corruption trial and spy tape scandal to rear its ugly head. What's your take on everything that you've heard thus far through the interviews? Who's looks like the clear winner for you? Is it Advocate Andrea Johnson? I know that's been a top name on many pundits' lips.
I wouldn't think so. I think the Andrea Johnson, there were really big questions asked about possible conflicts of interest. Her husband is also in the police force, I think, or some such thing. So there's been some questions about her IDAC's involvement in cases of the head of crime intelligence. I don't know who the front runner is. For me, the person that clearly is going to be the best person to shake things up is Hermian Cronje.
Right. So many outstanding sort of major question marks hanging over the judiciary as we move into 2026, whereas I feel like with law enforcement, at least we've been sort of drilling down into the serious heart of the issue, when it comes to these criminal cartels, allegedly the big five, allegedly capturing a large part of it, and at least now that's out in the open, whereas where I feel with the judiciary, it's not quite 110% transparent enough for me as the average South African. And I feel like we need to have more of these sort of types of conversation, Pierre.
Yeah.
Are you ready for this? You can't escape it. It's 10 questions. I put it to all of my interviewees before I end off. It's supposed to be very fun and flippant, but it's mostly news related, Pierre. It's called Rauby's Round Robin. Are you ready for this?
Okay, I'm probably going to fail terribly, but yes.
It's not a quiz, it's just your opinion. What is the one South African scandal you still want answers to in your lifetime?
The Robert Smith murder. The MP in apartheid South Africa was killed, and we suspect that it might have been his own National Party people who did it.
Yes, that is such a interesting story. He was an up and coming economist that was trying to strike it big within the NP. Do I have that correctly? I remember the case.
He was a member of parliament, and he was up and coming. And he was murdered in his house. There was all kinds of graffiti written on walls. Nobody knew what it was. People thought that it was just a kind of way of making people believe that it was to do with the satanic or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a very strange story.
Very, very strange. And I think his wife was killed as well, right?
Yes, yeah, they were both killed.
Sure, unbelievable stuff. It's one of those, definitely, it's an apartheid cold case, definitely. If you could put one politician on airplane mode for a month, who would it be, Pierre?
No, I don't know if there's anybody. I would rather I would rather not listen to anything and block my ears.
Yeah, I love that answer. Which press conference in 2025 emotionally hurt you the most?
The one of not Sepp Blatter, Infantino, and Donald Trump. I don't know if it's a press conference where the draw for the Soccer World Cup was made.
Lovely. Who's your favorite? Okay, this one's tough. Eh? Everybody struggles with this one. Who's your favorite News 24 journalist or editor or colleague or whatever the case? But you got to be biased. Who's your favorite?
Oh, Karen Moore.
Oh, lovely. And she'll love that. She listens to the lead religiously. You've just made her year. What's the one story in South Africa this year, Pierre, that deserved the Netflix docuseries treatment?
I have no idea now. It's obviously the Makhonazi thing, but that's the easy answer. Everything around the commission, but starting with the press conference that Lieutenant General Makhonazi held in July.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the common denominator. Which South African song would be the soundtrack to your career thus far?
I can't say Weekend Special. I have no idea.
Let's go with Brenda Fassie. That's brilliant. Barber. It's beautiful. You can't
really think of anybody else.
Yeah, and you can't beat the bass line in that. It's an absolutely epic track. Now, if you were forced, Pierre, to embed with one government department for a year, which one do you think you would survive the longest in?
But I was going to say Departments of Arts and Culture, but there would have to be a different minister. Yes, but because the stakes are so low in the Department of Arts and Culture, it might not be so vicious. But the minister is a bit of he's not the most truthful person in the government.
Sure. You have one wish for South African journalism next year. What is it?
That people will give their money so that they can do the stories that they need to do to inform us all.
All Pierre de
I wasn't paid to say that.
I appreciate it. All Pierre de Vos wants for Christmas is?
If I was in the Miss World competition, I would say world peace, but that's maybe. I would say the end of the Israeli genocide in Palestine, to be serious.
Yeah, I would agree with you wholeheartedly there. Our editor-in-chief, Adrian Basson, also said world peace. And then there's the final one of Rauby's round robin for 2025. Pierre, fill in the blank, please. South Africa will officially be okay when?
Will officially be okay when the political parties we currently have are replaced by better ones.
Sure. Yeah, that's going to take another 50 years.
Yeah.
That's our absolutely excellent constitutional law expert. He's with UCT's law faculty at the moment. He's, of course, Professor Pierre de Vos. You can catch his latest op-ed on the front page of News 24, still trending, garnering a lot of comments today. Despite arrests and sexism, South African judiciary shows marginal progress in 2025. And, of course, there is some things to celebrate and some things to leave in 2025. I think, Pierre, is our final way to look at it, right?
Yes, I think so too.
Thanks so much for joining us on The Lead. Lekker naweek, lekker vakansie.
Baie dankie and thank you.
You're listening to the latest edition of The Lead on News 24 with Graeme Rowenheimer. If you've got an opinion on what you've heard so far, drop us a short voice note on our WhatsApp hotline. That's 072 562 3179. Trending topic.
Moving to our trending topic, and the holidays are certainly here for many of us, but not quite our politicians just yet, who are proving a silly season of another kind is upon us. Today, KwaZulu-Natal Premier Thamsanqa Ntuli, installed by an IFP-ANC-DA coalition, had survived a failed motion of no confidence brought by the Mkhonto Sizwe party. It's the one party that holds the most seats in the provincial legislature, based in Pietermaritzburg, but not quite the 50% plus one majority it needs to govern outright. Now, the MK claim Ntuli's left a poor governance and financial track record thus far, and members in their green camo fatigues became unruly in the legislature's chambers today, disrupting proceedings before dozens of policemen were ordered to remove them. They called for a secret ballot for the motion, claiming that their members received death threats in the run-up to the vote. But Speaker Notumbeko Boyko opted for an open vote without the MK party's participation, according to reports from News 24's Amanda Khoza in the council chambers. Now, what began as disruptive singing soon turned to chaos in the provincial council room when the Speaker announced the MKP motion had indeed failed. By that point, MK party leader Jacob Zuma had already left the legislature after shaking hands with those in attendance. What say you? Drop us a voice note, 072-562-3179. Alternatively, your mails are always welcome at thelead@24.com.
And finally,
ending off with On This Day in South African history, it's the 15th of December 1899. What a turning point in South African history it was. During the Second Anglo-Boer War, British forces under General Redvers Buller launched a frontal attack at the Battle of Colenso in an attempt to relieve the besieged town of Ladysmith. The attack failed disastrously. British troops suffered heavy losses, with more than 1,100 men killed, wounded or captured. Among the dead was Lieutenant Freddie Roberts, the only son of Field Marshal Lord Frederick Roberts, and Boer losses were minimal, with only 8 killed and around 30 wounded. The defeat at Colenso followed earlier British losses at Stormberg and Magersfontein, bringing an end to what became known as Black Week, one of the most humiliating periods for Britain during the conflict. The 2025 news cycle shows no signs of slowing, and of course the lead will be here to bring you credible updates as and when we get them on all the bigger stories. Even from next week into the new year, you can expect some end-of-year lead content. We've got interviews with all of our top journalists discussing the 2025 impact report and all their stories that made major news headlines this year. From Carl Cohen on Twatterbaas to Karen Morn on the various commissions, Jeff Wicks, of course, on the Cat's 9 Lives, and Sikonati Manchacha on the harrowing number of assassinations we've seen. Look out for the lead on all of your favorite streaming platforms, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and Iono, as we round off the year that was. My name's Graeme, and so long as there's trusted news first, we'll always have the lead.